the earth itself, spawned from the land of fire and ice by the descendants of the Norsemen and the Celts. An emerging force with the power to rupture the very foundations of the planet that begot it into existence. I bring you KATLA.
Being named after an Icelandic volcano and having volcanic rock as the end cheeks on the cut-off knob and on the master volume isn't the only unique thing about this synth. When I first came across it in Máquina Bristrónica back in September last year, it took me more than a few minutes to understand what was going on. Normally I can sort of get to grips with the synth and understand how the architecture's put together, but with this it's just completely different. We start off with these 5 voices here. And as you can see, we're rotating through them. And they call this a rotating voice polysynth or something like that. We've got these 5 voices and they're all independent. They can all have a different oscillator shape. So let's give this one a square. So let's turn these off. You can turn them off as well. So let's put one up an octave. Let's give this one, I don't know, a triangle, put up 2 octaves. Turn it on. So from the very start, you're doing things that most synths can't do. Let's put them all on. And that leads to all sorts of unpredictable movement in a piece. And on top of that, we've got key tracking on the amp envelope, the mod envelope, and the LFO. So although we've only got a single LFO down here, if we put key tracking on, let's put the filter cutoff on there. Let's put it on negative. So a simple single LFO, but we're getting a lot out of it. And then coming over to the amp envelope, for example, if we let's take that modulation off for a second. If we put this into looping mode, we can go up into audio rate frequencies. Let's put key tracking on as well. Let's change that a bit. This goes up to an hour, by the way, this release. And of course, making that slower, you can do all sorts of nice paddy things. So let's put a bit of that filter cutoff on there as well. You can see where that's headed then, almost into modular territory. And then on top of that, we've got 4 different distortion types. Just take that off for a second. We've got an overdrive up here, turn the resonance up. This kills the resonance. You can hear this still doing mad stuff down there, but then we've got a wave shaper. And a main drive down here. And we've got phase distortion as well. So let's put one of these, let's just put the single voice on, put it onto a square, which that one is. Let's put phase distortion on, so this will give us PWM. Let's turn all that other distortion off. course we can use it on different wave shapes as well. Let's put this into audio rates as well. Playing some chords while he's doing different things. Gives you really interesting inversions and different sort of harmonic content, just hitting the same note. And in fact, that first intro demo used that to do this. Where it was on this track here, wasn't it? And that did it. That's just repeating a single note. There. So hopefully you're starting to see why this is pretty unique. And we've not even touched on down here yet. If I just load up a really simple patch again, so I'll go into, I think it's here. I'll just show you what each of these are. This is like a pitch modulation. This is like a wow off a tape. This is the flutter, so faster modulation. This is sort of intermittent pitch oscillations, like you're touching the tape. This is amplitude and spectral modulation, sort of sounds a bit like noisy, scratchy. And this one's interesting. This is changing the decay, the attack, and the release times of the envelopes. So let's just change these again to do something more interesting. And then down here we've got stereo split. So voice 1 is always in the center, and then these move around. And we can modulate this with the LFO, so it's always changing. And then down here, we saw this earlier, that's the wave folder. And again, we can modulate that with the LFO. Or with the mod envelope. Same as a phase distortion. Let's go back to the square, it's easier to hear it on that. So yeah, we can hear that on the stereo field. And then we can modulate the LFO rate as well, so let's put that on the filter that way round. And as we're listening to this, we can hear that reverb, can't we? Just got 2 controls for the reverb, reverb mix. Let's put it back onto this sound here. So reverb mix. And this is an 80s style reverb, it says. And this reverb amount just adds lots of extra time, plus modulation, plus depth, I think. It just turns it into a big. Add some more to the mix. And we can modulate the amount of that reverb using the LFO, which is a lovely little trick I like doing. And that's exactly what I used for this next demo. Although you've already seen me playing around with it a bit, I'll set up a simple arpeggiator and then just start adding little bits to it and explain what I'm doing as I go through. And it's a nice little arp that pretty much anything could do. So I'm going to take it to places the KATLA can go, other synths can't. First and most obvious thing maybe is change the octave. So you could program that into an arp, but you couldn't do this simply. Let's knock this one down an octave maybe. Turn this one into a sine. Then maybe make it a little bit quieter. Put these on squares. Modulate that square, a little bit of PWM. So we're already going to places other synths can't go. This is quite interesting as well. If we add some resonance and then we increase the level of the oscillators, we get a sort of saturation that kills the resonance. Bring that saturation down. Quite cool. Bit of wave folding, make them a bit harsher. Stereo spread. Let's modulate the stereo spread with the LFO. Now this is really cool. We've got looping envelopes. So if we drop the decay, you can go like into audio rates with that as well. And then we can modulate or sort of semi-randomize these values with this. Cool. And both the envelopes and the LFO can be synced via MIDI clock. Let's modulate the reverb amount, or the reverb mix with the LFO as well. Let's knock the mix down a bit. That's nice. So yeah, just a few little things showing you how some of this works. Add some drive amount. Maybe add some wow and flutter. A little bit of pitch modulation. Then add this sort of like a dirty noise. And now we can change the direction of the round robin. We can turn that down a second so you can hear what's happening. That's randomized. We can go into unison modes. Different legato modes on the unison, but you won't hear them in this. That's nice as well, isn't it? Add some noise. Change the colour of that noise. Make it darker, which is great for bringing things in without noticing it's actually coming in. There you go, brighter. get it back to something standard again, shall we? So put them all back on the same octave. Put them all to sawtooth. Take the noise off. Take all these down, all these little modulation tweaks. Beautiful. I'll take a quick look at the oscillators and the filter then. I don't want to go into too much geeky detail over these because I think this synth is more about the interaction, the interface and how it all works. But just to show you really, we've got sine, triangle, shark's tooth, and the sawtooth. If you look at this, that's nice and bright, that, isn't it? That's going right up into sort of almost 20 kilohertz there, which is nice and bright. And the square, these are digital oscillators, by the way. You probably know that already, but just in case you don't, digital oscillators, but the rest of the signal path is analog. Then let's maybe change that phase distortion, shall we? So we don't go all the way through 0, but if we do it on the sawtooth, you can hear that. You can definitely hear that. Triangle, 100% hear that. And then the sine. Take a look at this rooster then, the wave folding. Doesn't do anything really until you're above a certain level. So if we look at this, we can see that overdrive coming in, and now, so let's put that a bit higher. So the interaction between the oscillator level and the wave folding, which is what you'd expect, isn't it? So let's put it onto a square and have a listen. Again, sort of what you expect. So there's loads of lovely harmonics in there, aren't there? So again, you can modulate that with the LFO. Let's do that. Let's put it onto the triangle. LFO's got different shapes, obviously. Go to random. Let's go to fast random. Let's take that off now. Batman shapes. So there's loads to play with in those oscillators. They might look quite simple, you know, you've got 5 wave shapes and 5 octaves, but with the rooster, if that's how you pronounce it, it sounds Viking-ish, doesn't it? And then with this global level here, there's loads to play around with. And then when you start mixing and matching different oscillator shapes, just messing around with a few of the parameters, and you come up with something interesting really quickly. just me playing around and trying to come up with something interesting. Take that a little bit further, spend a little bit more time on it, and you can do stuff like this. And the only other thing I've not mentioned on the oscillators yet is that we do have a sub. So we've got a sub on each of the voices. So bring each of the voices in, a bit higher maybe. And that can be a sine or a square, 1 or 2 octaves below. So you can have the sub in. And then bring the oscillator in on top. Something to fan it up, something nice to play with, and as it's the same for every oscillator, it is a way of bringing things back under control if things get a bit wild. I've not showed the noise yet. It can be bright. There's your thunder, and it can be dark. There's your volcano. I imagine that's what Iceland sounds like. Let's take a look at the filter now. It's a 24 dB low pass and band pass. Got a switch here for the low pass or the band pass. If we hold that for 2 seconds, it tunes them. So just got to wait about 30 seconds for this to stop flashing. Turn the resonance up, put the key tracking on and turn the filter down a bit. Make sure the oscillator's off. Got key tracking. Let's bring in the oscillator. And they should all be in tune, because it tunes them all. Let's turn these down a bit. Oh, it was quite nice, that, quite metallic. Let's bring in, let's turn that down actually. That's the amp envelope. That's why some of them are really short. It's better. Oh, it's quite nice up there though. So we're getting sort of FM-y weird little tones, aren't we? Let's detune it a little bit. So that's key tracking. Let's have a listen to the low pass. And to get full cut off, we need to turn that up there, like you do on an Oberheim. Then to continue down. But let's turn it up. I'm going to bring the resonance up now, so careful of your ears. We can see that's coming in way over 20 kilohertz. It is an analog filter, don't forget. Just drop that down a little bit. They say in the manual it's like inspired by the MS-20. And I get that. You can see those 3 resonant peaks there, can't you? That is nice. And bring this down and we get some thunderous basses. That's rattling windows. Yeah, that's a nice filter, isn't it? Let's put it onto the bandpass. Have a little play with that. Let's play a chord actually. Let's go to, was it 7 I've got chords on? Maybe let's stick a couple of other oscillators on as well. Let's stick a bit of that on as well. Add more of this, we'll lose that resonance. Sounds almost like a square, doesn't it? Yeah, we're getting all that nasty analogness out of that, aren't we? It looks like a sort of really sensible looking polysynth almost, besides the volcanic sides. But that filter really does take it to places you wouldn't expect a polysynth to go. Yeah, I really like that. We've not really looked at the distortion in much detail, and as I've got the graphs up, let's maybe take a look at it. Let's have the drive. So again, it's changing the wave shape. Combining that with this. Then we've got the driver mount as well. Turn that one down, that one up. Maybe some phase distortion as well. So there's loads of ways to play with those harmonics there. They don't actually sound like distortion really until you start putting them in chords and stuff. So gorgeous that, isn't it? Let's add some noise in there as well. And then this Asker, a randomness. Sounds like the synth's on fire. Add a little bit of modulation. So there's the distortions. We've not looked at the Aftertouch. I've not got an Aftertouch keyboard here, but we've got the KATLA parameters. That's these. So we can adjust these with Aftertouch, filter cutoff and the LFO rate. So the harder you press the key, the faster the LFO runs. And then over here, we've got external inputs. I've not mentioned those yet. On the back, we've got 5 external inputs. So you can process external signals as well. And then we've got panel mode, which is what I'm in here. What you see is what you get. We've got envelope clock and LFO clock as well. Over here, we've got presets. We've got 24 presets, only 24 presets, but that's quite a lot. You don't really use the presets, to be honest. I've got a few like a chordy thing, and then over here, I use this one as a standard sort of starting point, basically. And this was the chords from earlier. I think this was the Techno one. But another little interesting thing, it keeps on coming up with interesting things, doesn't it? Is this switch here, you've got full or row. And on row, you just save the settings for the row itself, which means that you can set your oscillators and then play around with everything underneath, which is just another great little idea. So you could play around with the modulation, save your modulation settings, and then mix and match that with different oscillator settings. Really like that idea. So I think that brings me to the end. So there you go, the KATLA from Genki. It's a really unique experience. Now, the first thing that people are going to say is, oh my God, I can't believe how much it costs, because it's 5,000 euros. And price is price. There's no point in quibbling on it and arguing about it. It's worth it if people buy it. It is made in Iceland, where I think it costs about £5,000 for a round of drinks anyway. So to the Icelandics, maybe it's not that much money. It is a really nice thing. It's not going to be anyone's first synth. This is a synth for the synth connoisseur. This is a synth for people like me who have got lots of synths and, you know, like exploring new things. Also, if you've got something like this, it does, because it's limited in its modulation abilities, it can't do absolutely everything, but what it does in a sort of special way. It's got a sound of its own. It means that it gives you a sound, it gives you a texture or a character that's not easy to get these days, because everyone's got everything in the computer. You've got every single old vintage synth you could possibly imagine, but nothing quite sounds like this. So I actually think it's worth the money. If you've got a lot of synths and you want something different and you enjoy experimenting and you're a little bit bored of all the other synths out there doing very similar things, this is well worth checking out. Well, I hope that was of some use to somebody somewhere. If it was, please do subscribe, ring the bell, join me over on Patreon. I've got patches, samples, tutorials and other bits and bobs, and also do take a look at my starskycard.com website. Again, patches and samples, and there's some links down below for some patches and bits and bobs as well. I'm trying my best to be able to afford stuff like this. So everything you can do does help to support the channel, and thanks for staying to the very end. I will see you next time.